Every person has a purpose. Every story has a face. Every one of us is connected by the tapestry of grace. Yeah, we are real people, real faith, real stories and real talk. Welcome to the table. Talk, 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 talk about it. Real people, real faith, real stories and real talk. Welcome to the table. Come on, let's talk, talk, talk about it. Yeah, yeah. Say yeah. Say ooh. A kaleidoscope of colors, a mosaic shaped by love. Each the same and still we're different. Yeah, that's the way he made us. Real people, real faith, real stories, real talk. Welcome to the table. Talk, 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 talk about it. Real people, real faith, real stories, real talk. Welcome to the table. Let's talk, 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 talk about it. Real people, real faith, real stories, real talk. Welcome to the table. Talk, talk, let's talk about it. Real people, real faith, real stories, real talk. Welcome to the table. Talk, 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 talk about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Talk, 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 talk about it. Real people, real faith, real stories, and real talk. Yeah. Welcome to the table.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the table. We're excited that you are here with us for another exciting evening with Pastor Rivera, Pastor A.R. here at the table, where we discuss so much to help the body of Christ. And so we're excited that tonight we have an amazing topic for you. Listen, if you're already logging in, go ahead and you're on Facebook, hit the share button, or send this out to your Sunday school staff, your pastor, to anyone that works with children. Tell them to log on. And we're going to have a great discussion on how the church can do better in providing services, resources that love to parents who are dealing with children who have autism or any kind of disability, whether they're on the spectrum in any level. And so we're going to be talking about that. We have 4 amazing guests with us who will be able to talk firsthand. They know what they're talking about. They'll be able to share from their experiences, not only on a personal level, but also what their church is doing to help parents during this time with their children. So we're excited to be here. So thank you for being on. Again, if you are on Facebook, go ahead and hit the share button, share this out. If not, go ahead over to YouTube and subscribe. It's free at Pastor Abner Rivera so that we can see your comments and take your questions. We're excited that you're here. Bernice, God bless you. Thank you for being on with us tonight. Thank you. We missed everyone. Yeah, we had to take a break on Easter. We had to go spend some time with Jesus. And so now we're here back at the table. So we're excited that you can be with us. We're excited about what God is doing. The View is at the table. The View is our team from Longwood, Florida, who has tuned in since we started. And they reached out to some people who are going to be listening from Georgia and some other people from their church. So thank you to Amara for that, for spreading the word on that. So we're welcoming everyone to the table tonight. There's a place for you. There's a place for your family. There's a place for anyone who wants to come and just hang out on Monday nights at 8 p.m. with us here. So listen, let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone tonight. Welcome to the table. And I'm just glad that you joined us for this very important and much needed conversation. Today, we're discussing a subject that touches the heart of family. It touches the heart of faith, and it's the responsibility of the church. How can churches be more sensitive to parents who are raising children with autism, specifically autism because we're in Autism Month, but we're also including any parent that is dealing with a child with disability. So this is more than just a ministry conversation. This is a kingdom conversation, because the truth is many families come into our church, not just carrying their Bibles and backpacks and baby diapers, but they're also carrying heavy emotional burdens, silent fears, deep exhaustion, and sometimes even the pain of feeling misunderstood or even left out in our church. So many parents are not simply wondering whether there's a seat for them in the sanctuary, they're just wondering if there is truly room for their child in the life of the church. So tonight, we're coming to the table to have an honest conversation, a compassionate conversation, a challenging conversation. So we want to ask ourselves, have we really made room? Have we really listened? Have we really equipped ourselves to love these families well? So we have some guests with us today. And so my prayer is that this discussion will open hearts, it'll awakening our understanding, and we will move churches forward, right, into a place of intentionality when it comes to dealing with students with special needs. So as a church, we got to be willing to grow, right? Times are changing. We've got to grow. We've got to learn, and we've got to become that place where families still feel welcome, where they can belong. So pull up a chair, lean in, join us at the table, grab a cup of coffee, grab some tea, whatever you need, and we're going to welcome you tonight. We're excited that you're here. So let's start bringing in our guest. I'm going to bring the music down. Yeah. So from they're going to introduce themselves. So here's our first guest that's coming in, Sister Evelise. God bless you. I know her. She's from Elohim Christian Church, and we have Jessica Campos, who's coming in from Florida, I believe, with us tonight, filling in. Thank you so much. God is so good having you with us. We have Widmati, who's one of our locals here in Wayne, and Brother Danny as well. And so we are all going to be sharing with us tonight with what God has for. Can you guys hear me? You with us. We have Widmati, who's one of our locals here in Wayne, and Brother Danny as well. And so we are all going to be sharing with us tonight with what God has for. Can you guys hear me? You with us. We have Widmati, who's one of our locals here in Wayne, and Brother Danny as well. Yeah. Sorry. I had the Facebook going on, so you could hear the echo there. Bendiciones. All right. Amarilis, God bless you from Florida in Florida. She's from in the Apopka area. Thank you for being with us. And I had the Facebook going on. There you go. Bendiciones. Ellie, there's your sister saying hi to you from Bluefield, New Jersey. Elizabeth Gonzalez. Good to hear from you. Amen. So I'm getting an echo on my end. Are you guys getting it on your end?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is someone live on your if you're live on your end? Yeah. So give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. All right, welcome to the table. Okay, I think the echo's gone. Welcome to the table. Thank you for being with us. So, Evelise, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, so I'm Evelise, and I am I attend Elohim Christian Church in Queens. I'm part of a small group that we have for families who have children with autism or any other disability. It's called Embracing God's Blessings. I also have a son who is on the autism spectrum, and I'm also a school social worker. I work in a CPSC program, so I work with little ones from ages 3 to 5, and we have a lot of students that are on autism spectrum. That's in my building. So thank you so much for having me here today.
Awesome. Let's continue. Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica. Obviously, I am a district behavior coach with Orange County Public Schools here in Orlando, Florida. I support most of our some of our most challenging students in 8 different schools, so I love doing that. I am also the mom to an amazing 10-year-old boy on the spectrum.
Awesome. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Danny? tell us a little bit about yourself.
I cannot hear you, but I think you are. So my name is Daniel Delgado. I am a father of a 18 years old. It's gonna be 18-year-olds in a couple of months. I'm excited. I'm also a member of the Centro Cristiano Restauración in Florida, and I'm glad that you are discussing this topic that it not only affect me, but also affects so many people that have kids in the spectrum.
Awesome. And my good friend, Widmari.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wilmari. I am by career an assistant principal at East Orange Public Schools. I'm at the high school level, but I'm also a member at Calvary Temple International in Wayne, where I serve over the Next Gen team. I'm also on the board and I'm the translator. So I work closely with our Next Gen team in ensuring that all our students have special needs met.
Amen. So we're going to open up. We want to just give you some background before we dive into the questions. So I'm going to ask Jessica to kick us off. So when someone hears, my child is on the spectrum, or that type of terminology comes on, what are they actually saying?
Right. So most people think, when you speak of spectrum, they think low and high, but spectrum just really means that, each child has a different capability, right? Each child has a different level of strengths and a different level of challenges, right? So I always think of my son. My son taught himself how to multiply and figured out that division was the inverse of multiplication by himself, completely independently, right? But he also struggles with his communication and his comprehension skills, right? While there's other kids that are super amazing and they're able to, communicate things really efficiently, right? But they struggle with behavioral challenges, right? Spectrum just means that your child has a level of strengths and a level of challenges that is unique to them.
Awesome. So we're also hearing a word that's been around from the 90s, but it's taking a little bit more momentum during this time, is the word neurodivergent, right? And in my research, it's just the big umbrella where all of these different disabilities fall under. Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, neurodivergent just, in layman's terms, just means that your brain just operates a little differently from what a normal person's brain might work, right? You might need a little bit more supports in one area or another. You just learn things a little differently than what is normal for other people.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this conversation. So we want to be able to take your questions at the end. So our first question for tonight, as we tackle how churches are dealing with this situation. So for families who are raising children with special needs, what does it feel like when they walk into a church and immediately sense that no space has been made for them or their child with a disability? So Widmari, why don't you start us off with that?
Sure. One of the things I did forget to mention is my niece, Annabella, who's maybe listening, is also on the spectrum. So I'm very proud of my niece. She is 10 years old. Oh, 11. I'm sorry. She corrects me all the time. So I feel that families with students that have special needs, particularly autism, sometimes don't feel seen in the church. Sometimes they carry that heavy extra burden of, is my kid going to be able to fit in what's happening in the church, what's going on in the church, So it's kind of like a silent burden that they carry, because when they walk into the church and you see, and it's something I've discussed even with my sister, you see other kids playing in a circle, right? Sometimes that's very difficult for children on the spectrum. Like my niece has a difficult time with that. So just finding a space where they know their kids are going to be safe, where they know their kids are going to be seen, and where their kids are going to be loved. Because if your kid's in school, most people in a school building, I know some of us work in schools, know that you're trained to be in that environment, right? But if you're going into a church building, not everybody is an educator. Not everyone is aware of what it means to be on the spectrum, like we were saying. So it can be a very scary place for a parent of a child that's on the spectrum. Where do I fit in? How does my kid fit in? Are the other kids going to accept my kid? Is someone going to look at my child strange when they blurt something out that's maybe silly and doesn't make sense, or when they start stimming? So just bringing awareness of those simple things in church makes so much of a difference, because sometimes people are not aware of that situation. People are not understanding what's going on. And for a parent of a child, and I'm just a titi, I feel like she's mine, but she's not. My sister reminds me that all the time. But even as the aunt, you're very protective, right, of my child and how they're feeling. So church should be a safe space. But as we're having this roundtable, is it really a safe space? How are we making it a safe space?
And so, one of the things that we need to also take into consideration, if someone is going to visit your church, this has been buzzing around in the last couple of weeks. If someone is going to be visiting your church, they're going to go to your webpage. They want to know what your church is about. And if your church doesn't have a webpage, if there's nothing that they can look at prior to going to your church to say, I wonder if Calvary has something. I wonder if Elohim Christian Church, right? So they're looking for a church that is going to be accepting. So if a church doesn't have it, or they have it and it's on the webpage, when a family first walks into their church, and so Ivelisse, if you want to talk to this, or Widmati, because you have it in your church. So how does a parent know that your church has that ministry? Is something announced? Is there a sign? How do parents know that your church is equipped to handle students with disabilities?
Ivelisse, you want me to go?
So when the families come into the church, we have like we have people that welcome them. So usually there's somebody there, and if it's a child that's coming in, they will offer to the family if they want to go over to the children's church. So once they walk them over to that area, we have a children's pastor and we have staff that work there that can so they're like they've been experienced, so they kind of like can, we don't have anything that says it, so but we kind of like have a feel, we can see, we can get a feeling of the family, and we can ask them, and so we bring them over to the children's church at the area, and they'll offer the family. We also, like, if we see that the child may need something else, so a little more structure, or it may be too stimulating for them, then we will let the family know that we do have what we call it a blue room in our church. So it's like a sensory room, and we have staff there, so the families offer that option as well.
Right. And I love what you said there, that your volunteers have been trained, right? They've been trained to pick up on just simple cues that this child may need help, or this parent may need help, that this child isn't, as Jessica said, normal. And we can't even use that word, because what's normal? Again,
right.
What's normal now, right? But there are like Widmati said, if the child is stimming with the fingers, or walking on their tippy toes, or just you kind of see, there's things that you can pick up on, which this is why we're talking about this. So if you're here today, if you're like an associate pastor, if you work with girls ministry, Rangers, children's church, Sunday school, whatever it is, you got to get your team trained on just simple cues, simple things that you can pick up as visitors or walking into your church, that can kind of set off a little bell that let's follow this parent, or let's approach this parent and let them know, hey, how are you? Who's this, right? Who's with you here? And let them feel, right, that sense of love and acceptance, and that, yes, we're here to unburden you if for a moment. If we can. Go ahead, Widmati.
One thing that we also do, we also have greeters that are trained. We have like one head greeter, and then there's other greeters there as well. We also have it advertised. It's also on our children's ministry site. And one of the things that's very important is the training, because one thing that we do try to do is meet every so often with the entire next gen team. We have these leadership summits, and that's something that's mentioned in during our leadership summits. There's training, there's because these kids aren't going to always stay kids. They're going to grow as time passes by. So our middle school program has to be prepared for the kids that are in the kids ministry. The youth has to be prepared for the kids that are in middle school, because they're going to keep growing. They're not going to stay little forever. So the training is so important. But just having trained people to be greeters, to know, and we do have it on our app where parents can ask, and also it's very open. For example, when we first went to Calvary, my sister reached out. hey, I have a daughter with autism, and immediately got a response back saying, we have this program called iFit. That's what we call it, CTI, iFit. And we've just grown from that into now we have middle school. Those kids are in middle school, but the training is key to be able to pick up, like you said, the stimming, to be able to pick up those things. Having trained leaders is very, very important for this.
Yeah. And so, so how do you know when a church is not prepared, right? They're not prepared, they're not informed, they're not, and some of them don't want to adjust, which that's a big one, like, right? Churches that don't want to, be accepting of a parent who has a child with a disability. It's almost like it throws a wrench into everything. And so now we've got to get training, and we have to get a lot goes into this, right? We've got to get now a special room because it has to be sensory sensitive for them, whether it's lighting, it can't be strobe lighting, and they want little cars and stacking. There's so much that goes into it. So, Jessica, how can that become a little scary for parents when they walk in and it's obvious that their child has a disability and it goes unnoticed?
For me, I feel like I'm juggling two things at the same time, right? Like I came in ready to worship, right? But there isn't a space for my son, right? So now I'm trying to connect with God. I'm trying to worship. I'm trying to get fed, right? But at the same time, I'm trying to ensure that my son is safe. I'm trying to ensure that his vocal stems aren't too loud, right? So that he's not disrupting the service, right? So I feel like I'm juggling between, making sure that he's safe and he's not disrupting the service, but I'm also trying to still connect with God at the moment.
And that's the other part of it, right? We were speaking earlier, a parent who has a child on the spectrum deals with a lot all day. The child does go to school and they have professionals that are trained and with them. But then when the child comes home, he's your responsibility for the next 12, 13, 14 hours, depending on the severity, right? The severity of where the child is on the spectrum, it can become very exhausting for a parent, as Jessica kind of hinted to. So when a parent comes to church, it's almost like they're looking for a space where they can just unwind for like an hour, right? They want to be able to release. They want to be able to release their child to professionals, to a Sunday school team, Evelise, right? God's Promises is called.
So embracing God's blessings. So that's our support group for the parents. That's not for the children.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, that's great. Yeah. So tell us, that's great that your church has a
support group. Yeah.
And so we're seeing, we in New Jersey, the current statistics are that in New Jersey, 1 in every 29 children is being diagnosed with autism, and specifically in Newark, where my church is, 1 in 9. So those statistics they're insane, not to use that word, but they're just super high for the time. So we're going to be seeing within the next 2 to 3 years that people who are getting saved, the visitors that are going to be visiting our churches, family members that have it, that are looking for a space where they can go and worship God, but doesn't have to be every 2 minutes looking at the child. If he's throwing something on the floor, is he being too loud? As Jessica was saying, are they interrupting the service? So that's where the church has to definitely step it up. Step it up. So what does it say to a family when a church says we love everyone, but has no real support or classroom or resources for the child? So that's we love everybody, but here's my child. Oh, we can't take your child. We don't have. So how does at Calvary? Okay, I just walk us through it. Okay, this is for those of you who are listening. Walking through it. So I've been to Calvary. I just walked into that humongous foyer that you guys have, the beautiful steps that go up to the balcony. It's humongous, right? And so let's say you're one of the volunteers. You see me walking in with my child. It clicks. You see something on my child, right? That tells you this child is a special needs child, right? what happens at Calvary at that moment?
So every child that comes into Calvary is checked in because we do have a check-in center. So every kid, so there's no difference whether they are a special needs student or, like we say in education, a general education student. They're all going to be checked in. That's procedures in church. They all log in. There's an iPad. They sign their name. They get a tag. The parents get a tag. No one gets picked up without the tag. That's just security measures for us. In that process, I'm scoping, I'm guiding, I'm going to the parent and I'm saying, hi, God bless you, welcome. I know at this point in time where, most of our regular kids are, and most of our kids who are guests or visitors, we approach the parent and we see them checking in. This is what usually happens. They check in their gen ed student, but they don't check in their student that has special needs. That's where I step in. I go, oh, is Johnny going to stay, for example? And the parent, most of the time, 99% will say, oh, but, they're on the spectrum. We're like, we have something for him. So we walk the parent through the registration process and they get so excited, like their face completely changes, like, oh, they have somewhere to go. We invite the parent if they want, especially with the children that are special needs. The parents want to see where you're leaving them, who you're leaving them with. So we'll have one of the other workers of volunteers walk them to the back, show them the CTI fit room. It's very far away because in the gym where we have the kids, we have the strobe light. There's a lot going on when you're talking about maybe 150 to 200 kids at the same time. There's a lot going on. So it is in a quiet area towards the back of our first floor. We walk the parent, we introduce them. Usually we have two specialists, Miss Tracy and Miss Asha. They're like our head ones. This grew out of Miss Tracy's heart, because her daughter had special needs and she was really the founder of the program. And it's been in existence for 12 years before I got there. It's just grown as time has gone by. We introduce them. The parent drops the kid off. We have a whole form. Are there any special needs? We take the parent's phone number. Every parent registers with their phone number in case there's an emergency and we have to reach out to them. And once the parent is comfortable, most parents seem to be comfortable and they're like, I want to break, I want to worship, right? They drop them off. That room is fully stocked with everything any special needs teacher needs, and for kids in neurodivergent that are in the neurodivergent area. And we have kids with Down syndrome. We have different disabilities, special abilities, I like to say, happening at the same time. The parent goes back after our service is done. Come back, they'll talk to the teacher. The teacher will speak with them, see if there's any need. So that's basically what it looks like. It's really the work of the volunteers to understand and to be fully aware, like you said, educate them on this is what it looks like. And really the first pillar is that they don't think that there's something for their kid. So you see them registering their maybe 2 students, and then there's 1 student they don't register. That's always the first question. Hey, there's a place for him or her as well.
Yeah. And then Ivelisse, is there a format, a routine, a protocol in your church if a visitor comes in with a special needs child?
So I can't really speak too much about that because I'm not with the children's church. So I can't give you like specifics like what Mari did. So I do apologize about that. So
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
You work with the support group.
With the support group, yes. And my son is 21. So he stays in the service with me, but I could talk about a little bit when we've been in the church for 20 years at ECC. And when we did come to ECC, it was actually a sister at the church that noticed that my son was on the spectrum. And she was the one that came to me because I put him in nursery, and she was the one that picked up on it because she used to babysit a child on the autism spectrum. And after like a few visits, she came over to me and she was like, she asked me, she was like, have you spoken to the pediatrician? And like I said, I am a social worker, but I had never worked with children, young children, because I was in a different area at that time. I still talk to her. She doesn't attend the church as much anymore, but I love that she was the one that brought it to my attention. And we didn't, as he got older, we didn't have the blue room because our church had not expanded yet. So I was the parent that struggled whether we went to attend the church. my husband and I, or one stayed home so the other one could go and be part of the service and like really be enjoy, worship. And so we did that for a while. Then there were, and at times there were sisters who would take my son and take him for walks, and there were young adults that would also do it. So that was very, very helpful, and I truly appreciate to this day. um but having that area now that parents can just walk in and be able to get that release, like you were saying, get that respite time, right? That is something that it's invaluable. Like, to be able to say, okay, I'm walking in, I'm bringing my child here, and I can like truly worship. So I'm so glad that our church, when we expanded, we were able to add that. And even though we didn't have it when my son was young, I thank God that I did have sisters in church who would always like, take him. And we went to family, for years. Our church always goes to family camp every year, and for years my husband and we couldn't go because it was just like too much. But then one year my husband's like, let's just go and enjoy. And some sisters were like, you know what, we're gonna take him from you. And they would take him because my son was like the only one with special needs at that time.
Mhm.
So they would like take him and they would let us enjoy the conferences. So doing things like that, showing God's love, when even if your church doesn't have a ministry, that is something that that's a way that churches can support these families as well, if you don't have the space.
Yeah. Danny, I know can you hear me, Danny, now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I know that you were nodding when she said how her and her husband would take turns so that they
Yes.
can go back. So, because you have your son is going to be 18. So tell us a little bit about how do you guys manage that?
So I remember, I think that the most important thing it is that the pastor needs to be aboard, on board on the changes. And I am glad that um, my pastor at New York, Calvary Church in Monticello, Pastor Romero was able to do
Oh,
that.
okay.
Like one time we went to him and we said, you know what, we cannot do this anymore. So we have to on divide. One Sunday she's gonna come, and the next Sunday I'm gonna come. And he says, no, you guys are not going to do that. You guys are going to come. And one of the things that I will never forget is that he says, you cannot teach him how to act in church if you don't bring him to church. And it is so true, because my son, we take him to church, we went to many churches, we were so many stuff in the ministry, and we always took our kids with us, and he was always respectful. He knew what can he do in his home church and what he cannot do in somebody else's church. And I know that that was because the pastor was willing to teach him on the things. So this is very important.
Yeah. And I want to go back, and then we're going to jump into the next question. Maybe Jessica, you can jump in. So I love what Eva said. She said it was hard at the beginning because her son was the only one. And I think that what the church sees is because there's only one, why are we going to invest?
Yep.
So we have to give up one of our rooms. It's just one. Why can't we just put him with the other children? And it just doesn't work that way, right? A special needs child has special needs, right? They don't think like everyone else. They don't respond like everyone else. They don't act and react like everyone else. They have specific um, they have specific things that are specific to them. So the question is, why is it important for churches to invest in special needs resources, train the volunteers, and provide these appropriate classroom environments rather than treating them as optional?
I
Pastor,
just
one
love
of the
how
things
you.
that I was looking at it
Sorry.
before we have the podcast is that 84% of families with autistic children most likely will not go to church. So not only we are talking about you looking at only 1%, oh, it's only one person, but when we look at it, 84% of people who are not going to church, it is very important, and that we seek those people, because not only on they are on needs because one of the things is, yes, it's a respite when we go and somebody takes care of them, but also, we have our life's struggles. We struggles, not only on the physical and aspect, but also in the spiritual aspect. A lot of the marriages, they don't make it
Mhm.
because because you never date your wife, you never go out with her, all the times you are with your kids, all the conversations are about your kids. So it is very important that when we get to church and we are being loved at church, we can enjoy what God is going to offer us from that church. When 84% of the people are not attending church, you know we are failing as a church. We are failing not only to those people, because you know what, the bottom line it is, parents with children's in the spectrum are also in need of salvation, the same way that people who has regular kids needs to hear the word of God. So I think that it is very important.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
It's a high percentage. 84% of parents who have special needs children won't visit a church. It's a lot. And and we'll get to this in a moment. I want to talk about um the shame part of it. There are parents who feel embarrassed sometimes that their child is on the spectrum, and so that kind of compounds on the fact that your church doesn't even have a space for my child. And so now I have to sit in the service with my child making all this noise, everyone looking at us. Why are they here? Why can't they take that child to the back? Why can't they go to another church? The people who are listening, that stuff happens. Those thoughts happen, and those comments do come out of people who are saved. And so
Mhm.
we've got to do better. So Jessica, back to investing, right? Investing in those resources. Why is that key? Especially now, it's 2026. Come on, let's get with the program.
I mean, you mentioned the one, right? And I feel like that's something that we struggle a lot. A lot of churches are just saying, like, we just have one. There's no need for all of the expenses, right? But it just reminds me, right? Like Jesus left the 99 to go get that one, right? So that one is just as important as the rest of our neurotypical children, right? And it just reminds me, as an educator, we spent so much time and resources trying to close those gaps for our children, trying to push them to their level of independence or to meet their goals, right? And I feel like we can do the same in church, right? There is purpose for their lives. There is a goal for their lives, right? So we should be in church doing the same, as trying to close those gaps within our kids, teaching them to pray, teaching them to find that purpose that God has for them, right? So it's not just the IEP that we do at work or at school, right? There is goals for them in church as well, right? There is purpose over their lives as well.
Yeah, and I love that part. I've seen some of these TikToks, right, where the parent has an autistic child, has never spoken, and 7 years, now the child is 7, and all of a sudden the child just says, "I love you," right? Because there is intake happening, right? With them, and they might not express it, they might not say it right there, but if we make that space for them in the church, where we are sharing the stories of Jesus and healing and David and Goliath, and I believe that there's intake happening. It might be at a minimal level, but when the parent least suspects it, or when the church least suspects it, that child is going to say something that confirms why this space is necessary, that will confirm why we have to make that space, even if it's just for one.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And creating that space for those of you who are listening, and your church doesn't, be bold enough for that parent. Step up for that parent. Call your parent, call the pastor this week and say, listen, there was a podcast on, and I've noticed that we have 2 parents and we don't have space for their kids. We need to make space. Be proactive for the parent who might be afraid to speak up. Be proactive for the parent who, like I said earlier, who might feel shame or embarrassment, not of their child, but just because of all the other stuff that comes with it, the clicking and the noising and the stemming and the sudden outburst, going in circles, or whatever it is that brings the spotlight to them, like knowing that their child has it. But how do we diffuse that, right? So that the parent feels loved, feels accepted in their church. So let's flip the coin a little bit. So with Mari, I will go to you because your church has it. So you took us through the process of how the check-in happens at your church, whether it's a general ed student or a child on the spectrum. So now the child is checked in, the mom has a tag, the child has a tag. They go to the room. It's 15 minutes later, and the child is showing signs that they're looking for mom, they're looking for dad. So here's two things that can happen. Does your church take the child to the parent, or is the parent contacted to come and check on the child? Because there's two different things happening there.
So before we ever take a child to a parent, we don't know what part of worship they're in, if the parent's receiving a blessing, if it's in the middle of the message, right? We don't want to interrupt parents from that, because that's something that's what they're there for as well. So what we try to do is we have the volunteers that are working, and of course that room, we try to staff it a little bit more, try to work through the problems. Like I said, the two people that are in charge, Miss Tracy and Miss Asha, God bless their hearts. They work with special needs. They have special needs children. They're the ones that are really the ones spearheading this. They have all their, like we said, all the educational techniques in them, provides them to their trainers. So we try to work along with the student. Next thing that we do, if we can't calm that student down, is modern phone text. We'd rather send a text to the parent. That's why we ask for every student's number. Every student, whether they're neurotypical or divergent, we have all their numbers on file. It's a safety issue, right? So we'll text the parent, hey, we're having a little situation, please come join us. The parent will then go to the next gen wing, and then we'll speak with the room. They'll see what's going on, whether it's sometimes they use the bathroom on themselves, right? Maybe that was their first time there. They didn't bring extra clothes. They didn't know we had that. So there's so many situations that can happen to cause a meltdown that we try to solve it in the room. With, like, not everyone is placed as a volunteer there, right? It's a specific ministry with specific type of person that needs to be in there and understanding with a specific type of training. We try to solve it kind of like what we do to school before we go to the principal's office. As an administrator, I appreciate that very much, because sometimes there's things that can be solved in the room, right? So that's what we try to do with them. We try to solve it in the room. If not, we get our next gen team to get through it, our next gen leads that are working. We try to get to our next gen pastor before we interrupt the parent. There are times where the parent has to come in. Many of these cases, what we do offer for those parents who might have to take their kid out is also, like, one of the adaptions that we made that, we invest in. We have the screens in the lobby that's streaming the service at the same time. That helps a lot of parents, not only parents with kids who are on the spectrum, parents with different abilities, as well as parents with babies, So sometimes those are the kinds of things that we as a church, going back to the investment part, have to look at. Like, okay, it's not just our CTI fit room. How can I help a parent when they're having a meltdown? And they have to stand the lobby that you talked about. They have to sit there in the lobby. There's still our purpose is, one of our house values, we have house values. One of them is, this is home and we are family. So when you have family, you have to accommodate your family. Your family calls you, they're like, hey, I'm coming over from Florida to visit you, or I'm going to Puerto Rico to visit you. You accommodate your family. You make room, you make space. So that's what, as a church, we have to do for all the families. So instead of just pulling the mom out of the service, we try to work through it, because these people are trained. When it gets to the point where we can't, we have our lobby with all the TVs, with the sounds. We provide volunteers always in the lobby, making sure, hey, are they ready to come back? Do you want to join us? So there's different avenues that we take before we pull out a parent from the service, just because we know that that's kind of a respite time.
Yeah, and I love what you say about accommodating the parent, because if I'm in the middle of service and I'm, all my life you have been faithful, my phone, all my life, you know where I'm going, right? So I get the text. Not that I would get upset, but I'm assuming that some parents can have a meltdown going, right? Like, oh my God, I thought I was going to get a break. I thought I was going to be able to have some free time, and now they texting me, ¿Qué está haciendo este muchacho? What are they doing? What are they up to? And sometimes it's I love that your church has trained people, because it's something that can be de-escalated. And maybe the child just needs to see mom for a minute or two, right? Especially if it's the first time that they're in your church. And for those of you who are starting this ministry, please know that those first time meltdowns will happen, right? If you're not trained, it can get overwhelming. But just know that if you're going to prepare, I'm going to put up my friend Santa, right? Santa Sanchez. She put on here, right? She's from TC in New York, and she put in there that they're in the process of preparing a sensory room and training our leaders. And I'm saying this to that, and then Jessica, if you want to jump in, because we can get the room ready, we can have everything in place, all the teachers are trained, and the meltdown can still happen. The yelling can still happen. Wanting to run out of the room can still happen. The hitting can happen, because who are you? Where's my mom? Where's my dad? Jessica.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it takes a special person to want to support our babies, right? Like you just have to have a heart for it, right? Like it just comes from there, right? And one of the things that have helped me, I support students that are in crisis, right? Like crisis, right? And one of the things that helps me is understanding what they are trying to achieve through that crisis, right? There's something called the functions of behavior, right? Where there is a sensory input, escape from the task, attention, or something, or access to something, right? So understanding what the student is trying to gain in that moment helps you understand how to approach that behavior.
Okay. Yeah. And you're a professional because you're working in that all the time. So Danny, and I'm gonna put this question up because this question came up, and I think it's a really good question. Widmati touched on it, and it says, there are children, but also young adults with special abilities. And Widmati had mentioned earlier that the kid who is now in second grade, if that family decides to stay in the church because the program is working, 5 years from now, that child is going to be in seventh grade. So how do we journey with the family? How do we journey with the child? Because that child is now in seventh grade, right? He's 10 or 11. So are your services limited to young children? What do you recommend for the older children or young adults? So did you feel, Danny, as your child got older, he's going to be 18 now, you started with this up in upstate, and now you're in Florida. Do you feel that even when your child was, let's say, 13, 14, was there support in the church even at that age?
So in my church, they never had another room, but he will go. Another thing that we need to know, it is with autistic kid, especially if your church doesn't have a special room, it is that if your son is 16 and he has to go on the class of 8 years old, you have to figure it out that it's not all about the age, because it's not the same age. So you have to make sure that you transition him to an adult class when he's not ready yet. But
Okay.
I think that the most important thing it is for parents that are listening to me, it is that, you know what? I know that God can make it work. I know that it was hard for me at the beginning when we started, my son, all his life he's been in church, from when we started going to church. We were involved in our ministry, in our church. We will go to every Saturday to the trimestral. We will go to the but my suggestion to the parents that are listening to it is just be patient. Just be still. God is still God, and I know that He's gonna make a way on to make sure that you are not left out. And I think that that's important, because my son, we were able to do everything that we wanted to do in the ministry, but also be able for him to be able to grow in Christ.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something to that. In order for it to work between kids, middle school, and youth, there has to be a connection within the teams. So each team can't work in silos. They can't work like, okay, this is kids ministry, I'm not going to work with the middle school team. This is middle school team, I'm not going to work with the youth team. And then when they become young adults, you can't say, well, they're on their own now, right? So there has to be some communication. There has to be some working together within the different ministries and the different leaders. It's not like, sometimes you get, well, this is my ministry and this is my ministry. No, this is our ministry because this is our church and these are our children. So the ministries have to work in conjunction. Like now we're seeing we have a few students that are special needs in the middle school program that have specific leaders that have worked with them since kids ministry, move up alongside with them in the middle school, and that's worked. And again, it's not only we have students that have Down syndrome that are now in the middle school program, students who have autism that are now in the high school program, right? And understanding that every service or every event might not cater to them, but it's how do I make that event cater to the student? It's not just about the general, but all the other students. So we can have an event that's held in the sanctuary. There might be a safe space in the gym for students, that are in that typical area of ability, that they're not neurotypical like the other students. So it's just finding a way. We've even had our young adult, our youth go to youth camp with special needs, and that's like big, right? But again, it all comes back to how open the church is to accepting this and how consistent the church is with training the leaders. And it's just like once you get through that first hump of starting it, like you said, be the first person to bring it out, getting through that first hump, finding people, like Jessica said, with the heart to do this, it's just moving forward, whether it's 1, 2, 15, or 20 kids. So it's just, that cohesive ministry work that needs to come into play for kids, middle school, and youth. They have to work together.
Yeah, and I would also, if you're, do your research, do the research. There's videos out there that can show you the severity of children on spectrum. So I know that there might be a bunch of people in your church that say, "Oh, I want to help," but when when the meltdown happens, you can't jump ship. So you have to be ready for the meltdown. Have you guys, with Mari or Ivelisse or even Jessica, how do you help when the parent has the meltdown? Because we know the child can have the meltdown, but sometimes the parent is so overwhelmed, so boggled down with just the little mini task of, I sit in on IEP meetings with the board. And so some of the questions like the children, there's even textures of food that the kids there's different things that it squeams them and stuff. So it's not just about looking at them and saying, oh, this child has special needs, but trapped inside this body, inside this child, each one individually. This one is all of this, and this one is all of this. And so sometimes it becomes a lot for the parent. I've seen some parents break down on the videos. How do we help parents when they have them down?
So I could talk a little bit about that for our support group. So the support group this is our 4th year, and it was a vision of one of the ladies in the church that has a son who has some delays, and she felt it in her heart, that parents needed this outlet. So that's where we meet once a month in person at church, and we just let the moms like pretty much vent, just, and we laugh, we cry, we hug, we pray, we bring speakers in, we bring teachers, we've brought doctors in, we talk about IEPs, we talk about behaviors, we talk about our feelings. We have social workers at church, so we bring them in sometimes also to present to the parents, and it's just a safe space. We started with just moms, and now a couple of dads have joined us. So it's just like a safe space for us to vent, to share information, to refer each other to services. It's just a beautiful space. So I would recommend that if churches see the need, that they could, to start a group like this for the families, just so that the families know that they can rely on each other. And then we also have a group chat. So whenever we're not meeting, we are on the group chat. And if we have a question, oh my God, my 15-year-old is going through this phase, and I'm not sure what to do, then we all can like jump in and kind of like share with each other. So I feel like that has really, really helped our families now.
That's awesome. And let me tell you something. You said, it just was women and now men are coming. That's big.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's big, because
It's big and true.
what I've seen is that when as this child is growing and the parents are dealing with the child, it's almost like the woman takes the brunt, the heaviness of it, right? There's something that happens with the father, knowing that their child is neurodivergent, that they're not, again, back to that word, normal, and they tend to process it slower, and it takes more for a dad to come around to the fact that their child is on the spectrum than it does for a mom. So to hear that your church has opened up that space where now fathers are coming, and just being able to just, again, unburden themselves, right? To have that space to just talk freely, to cry, to be vulnerable. It's incredible. So ECC is in the house. So we do have a question. Idalia Sepulveda has a question, and I'm going to reach out to you, Idalia, because we need to do something in the greater New York, New Jersey area to do some type of bring in people for training for this. So, but her question is, so recommendations for individual and or group training sessions, are they available virtually or in person only? Bilingual strategies for small churches, resources like sensory toys, etc. And I know where she's coming from. If you, so just so that Calvary is a humongous church. It is a church that just sits on this huge lot, and they have all these rooms and they have the resources. But for a church who's just starting, for a church who's looking for a space, can maybe a piece of a hallway work? Can you know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of starting point can they be at if they say our church just doesn't have a room right now? Our church just doesn't. We don't have the space. How can we make the space, or what? Where can we launch off from?
Well, when I was before we were at Calvary, my dad was a pastor in Newark. That's how I know Abner forever.
Emmanuel, North.
Is forever. And one thing that we did, seeing the need, because we had like 3 or 4. I mean, but it was a big difference as to what we've seen in time. We had a small room that was the nursery, but for some reason that was a perfect location for moms to come in, look through the window, see inside, and then go out, without the kids seeing you, because that's what we do as moms. You kind of don't want the kids see you, but you want to see the kid. So we started with that little tiny room. And it's a big building, but it's not as big as where I'm at now, where we have all the resources, where we can do those things, right? But just a small room, somewhere where you give them a safe space. That's really what we tried to do with the few that we had when I was at Emmanuel, including my niece when she came into that picture of like, oh my goodness, we have to provide services for her so my sister can lead worship, right? So there were like a lot of different things going on. So we had that small space. And again, we had people, again, like Jessica said, going back to what she said, who had the heart to work with students with special needs. But it doesn't have to be like a big, huge room. I mean, you don't want to put them in a closet where they don't fit. You want to give them space, but somewhere where it can be safe, where if, let's say, how we say in Spanish, they have a rabieta and they have they can fall on the floor safely, right? Somebody can grab them, that the kids aren't climbing on each other, somewhere safe.
Yeah. And I would say, as a pastor, there's a room. There's a room in your church that's just taking up space. Ain't nobody doing nothing in that room. And I'm quite sure if you go wholeheartedly to your pastor and say, listen, we need to begin to create this space. We do have a family, and we have to do it like I believe Jessica said, the 99 for the one, right? Even if it's just one, that family will feel valued. They will feel respected. They will feel appreciated. They will feel loved. And they would say, wow, they're doing all of this for my child, right? which you don't even know that later on can open up the door to other parents who may have a child and nobody knows. They're just afraid to say it because of the stigma that comes with it, right? So, Danny, you want to say anything?
No.
You're
Just
good.
well, like you say that there's always a room. What I realized, it was like I always say, everybody has a drawer in their house that is just only garbage, where you put everything that you don't need. So I know that every church has a place that they put just garbage, that they dump everything, and and you can open up for the opportunity for this kid. And sometimes, like, yeah, and like she says, not in a small, you know place, but because they need also the space. But starting, you also motivate the church. When you start something, you start having a small room, and you say, you know what, there's a need, or we have 4 kids, we have this small room, and we need to open up another a bigger room. And there's a way to motivate the community around you to be able to do better things. And you will have an influence of other people, because what we do is we say, well, such and such church cannot accommodate my son, but this church is a little bit far, but it can accommodate me. So it will also help the church, attendance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. Here's another question. What if your church has only 2 rooms? One is the sanctuary, and the other is like a meeting room and kids ministry. Currently have 2 families with children with special needs. Is these? I'll start off. So, if is the second room able to be divided into 2 spaces, where children's church or kids ministry can be on one side, and we can either put up chairs or some type of like curtain thing, to create just like a little corner where they can be there. Is that, anybody want to talk about? Is that pretty good?
Yeah. Like we've gone to small churches that have discussed this with us before, and I say you could have a corner. You can have like a in a just a little area in a corner. Even like churches that have like that is just like a small church. I always say to them, you can have like a space in the back, maybe save a little space in the back and make it comfortable. Have like a tent, or have like somewhere where they can just go retrieve to if they need that time. And even if you don't have volunteers, but somewhere that the parent can be able to go with the child, if you don't have somebody to help, and just be able to sit there with them. So because I know that a lot of Spanish churches have like a storefront kind of church, so they have some small churches, and even just designating like a small area, I think a parent will be grateful for that.
Yeah, and I think it's just creating the space.
Right.
It doesn't have to be all put together 100%. Right. It's just so that parents can say, I have a place where I can put my child in the safety of people who will watch my child, so that I can go and enjoy the service, right? So we're not where we have individual rooms now for everybody. You might not have that, but what's her name? Shadalay Ramirez. If you could take that space, right? Let's say this is the space, and just divide it in half, even with just putting some chairs across and maybe throwing some colorful like little towels on top or something, just to differentiate that that's kids ministry and this is the space for our special needs students. A rug,
yes,
and just something basics, just so that they can have a place to be themselves. Jessica?
I'm just thinking while you guys are chatting, right, and just brainstorming as a special needs parent and also an educator, right? Like, as a parent, I feel like, a lot of us are grieving the diagnosis, right? Life that we thought our kids were going to have. And we're constantly grieving when our child isn't meeting milestones. And then we come to a church and we're grieving a church that doesn't accept our kids. We're grieving that, the kids' church kids are participating in performances and they're doing things and they're doing activities, right? And my child doesn't have the opportunity to participate in that. So understanding, because we're grieving the diagnosis, we're grieving the myth of benchmarks, right? Creating that community that says, it's okay, right? Like I love that Evelise mentioned the support group for the parents, right? Because sometimes being a special needs parent can be super isolating. A lot of people don't understand our struggles. They don't understand that we are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? So understanding where our thought process is, where our mindset is, and being able to embrace us and welcome us in that, right? Like, I've been to several churches where they didn't necessarily have something for neurodivergent children, but my son always felt embraced, right? They love my son. He has special access to the pastor's office, right? So even small things like that, where, my son didn't feel like a bother, they tried to include him as best they could in all the things that were taking place.
Which I love that you say that, and we're sort of kind of coming to an end, but to piggyback off of what Jessica had said, if right now your church cannot, there really truly is no space for a room, you can still train people, and you can still have that person sit with that child in a regular Sunday school class to bring what I'm going to call, which is bring awareness to the other children that we're all beautiful, we're all made in the image of God, whether we're the spectrum or not, and to also bring that awareness to children that it's okay to be different. It's okay that they do that. It's okay that, well, why are they doing that? And to be able to begin that conversation with them at that young age, that, okay, well, he's great. He's, Junior's fine. He just learns differently. We might have to repeat stuff to him, but and so to begin that conversation. And so if you don't have the space, then create the space within the other space, which is the normal space, which again, back to so if you don't have a specific location or specific place, train the people to bring little Junior with them and sit in a regular Sunday school class and have them participate just like everybody else, and bring in that sense of inclusion. My child is included.
Yes,
right. But you don't have the space. Don't worry. We're trained. He's going to have a great time in Sunday school. Stay positive, right? Let the parent know that you've got it. We've got your child. Go have, and just like that. Go have fun in the service. We got it. We got it. Come on, come on with the child. So I think that that'll help also with Shadaley. There we go.
Pastor, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It does work. My church didn't have another place. It has the sanctuary, and outside a small, house that they built for the regular church. And my son attend to all the Sunday class. They just had one person that he was the one that was taking care of him all the time. They do that in the school setting. We can also do it in our and it does work. It does work. And what happened is, people, the other kids will start including them. It will be some inclusion. They will know, oh, wait a minute, we are gonna pop some balloons, and they know that my son didn't like them. He says, oh, Isaac, so it will include them in the conversation.
Yeah, I wanted to say that because we have our CTI Fit program on Sundays. On Wednesdays, when we do family night, or when we had the family night classes that I run, we don't have a separate class, but we had kids with autism in those classes, and the kids were so inclusive that one time I'm running the program. My niece is in the program. I'm telling I'm going to take her to the bathroom. The other little girl goes, no, don't worry, I got it. I'll take her. She's in the spectrum. Like, she whispered it to me. I'm like, I'm her aunt. Like, I'm literally her aunt. And, and the kids just become so inclusive. We take them down to the gym to play for a session, and they're making sure they're throwing the balls at the kid. They're including them in the game. So we can also teach other people. It's not just us creating a space and a room. That's all wonderful. But what happens when there's not there? We teach awareness to everyone, like you were saying, make it inclusive. So we do our CTI Fit on Sundays, but during the week, we don't have a specific class, but the kids are so aware. Like he said, like Danny said, they're just inclusive. So it's more than just, don't get hung up and I don't have a room. Get hung up in creating awareness.
Yeah. Yes.
To the church, church body, big or small, everyone should be there.
I love that. Create awareness before you create the room. Well, listen, we've come to the end. My friend Santa Sanchez says we need to bring part two. I would love to do that, and I would love to do even. So I'm going to ask this question for Eva Elise. Are you in charge of that ministry for the support for the parents?
So I'm a co-leader in the support group. Yes.
So maybe we could, in part two would be bringing in, you again and the lead. And then also with Madi bringing in the women that you mentioned, and maybe we could just do something like this to just do just some practical things, maybe get practical training that we can do like this on the live, where we can invite people to come and they can take notes. And I with this one, I can, if they do like a PowerPoint or whatever, I can display it on here. But I think that those two key components are so really good. And Jessica, if you want to jump in and chime in to be a part of that. From the educational part, right? Because the kid has the school part, but there's also the church part, right? And so then we have Evelise with that home part, right? Providing that support. So I think those three components, the home, the church, and schooling, and doing some type of training, even if it's virtual for now. Maybe over the summer we can put something together and do that. But for those churches, that you're looking to start something, start small. Start small. Just find a space, not necessarily a room with a lock and key. Find a space. Also have that conversation with your pastor. Have the conversation with the current Sunday school team, those that deal with girls ministry, those that deal with Rangers, those that deal with anything that has to do with children, and just bring an awareness, because I'm going to tell you, they're coming. The parents are coming with the amount of diagnoses that they're having. They're going to start walking into our churches, and we don't want to start to get ready. We need to already be ready. Even when, we have the space, we have everything that we need. It's ready. We have a bin. Everything is in it. If it happens, we're ready to go. Right. Do that. Well, listen. Thank you, Santa. She said, "Yeah, I can't wait." So thank you for joining in. So here's the last part of it. So what would you say to anyone who feels called to this, like called to deal with special needs children, not because of the whole "ay bendito, I want to do that," because it's more than feeling sorry for the parent or the child. I'm going to do it. So, what does it take to really step into this role, to want to be, bring the awareness of autism and children on the spectrum and different disabilities, to be a part of that ministry in your church? And we'll start with Jessica, and then we'll go.
I love that you said not the pity, right? We are, this is an empowerment ministry, right? We are empowering our learners to be exactly who God has called them to be, right? So stepping into that space, not, pity because they're lacking or because they haven't met the developmental milestones. We're stepping into this knowing that we are helping them connect to their purpose in God.
Good. No pity parties.
That's right.
Everybody?
I agree with the pity party. I'm so bad with my niece, though. I'm really bad. But no pity party. And just always think something we say we always say, save people, serve people, right? You're there to serve. You are there to serve. That is our purpose. We are saved. We just step into it, step in with faith. Of course, not with a pity party, just because sometimes you might have to say no. You can't do that, or you can't do this. So think about it as, sometimes we think there's no level in ministries. All ministries are important, right? And in the eyes of God, think of this as ministry because you're saved, and this is how you want to serve the kingdom of God. And every those children who are autistic, who become young adults, who become adults, empowered in Christ, about our living Lord. So save people, serve people. So do it.
Amen. Evelise, you want to say something?
Sorry, you probably hear my guy in the background singing, but yeah, just come. I would say, as long as you have a willingness, an open heart, an open mind, everybody can learn. Everybody can learn to be a part of this ministry. You just have to be willing, I would say.
Danny?
I would say that, like, if, for example, I'm a leader of the men's ministry and I deal only with men's, But you need to understand that if you are willing to work on this on the spectrum part, not only you are dealing with only with the spectrum kid, but you're also dealing with the mom, with the dad. It's a family ministry. It's not only for a particular person. So you need to understand that there's a lot of things that are gonna go around and that you have to deal with it. So it is for people who are willing, who has a love for it, because if it's not gonna go, it's not gonna work.
All right. All right. So as we close this conversation, right, and I pray that you've been able to take away something today. This topic is not just about making churches look more exclusive on the outside, but it's about reflecting what the heart of Christ is on the inside, right? They should not have to enter our sanctuaries wondering whether their child is going to be welcome or whether their family is going to be supported or whether their presence is a burden, right? The church must do better. We must become more aware. We got to be more compassionate, more patient. And what we've been talking about tonight, we've got to get more equipped, right? So to every parent listening who has felt overlooked, exhausted, misunderstood, or alone, I want to say to you, or we want to say to you at the table, you matter. Your children matters, your family matters, and your presence with us tonight was just such a blessing. So, and to every pastor, to every leader, to every church member listening, this is our call to action. It's our call to grow. This is our call to listen. It's our call to make room and make sure that we are the hands and the feet of Christ, even in providing the resources for parents who are dealing with students who are special needs. So thank you for joining us here at the table. I hope this conversation has just blessed you as much as it's blessed you. So until we meet again, please be safe, be kind, right, to these parents and these people who are going to be coming into your church. Just love on them as Christ would. So God bless you. Listen, for those that are our guests, don't leave. I'm going to put you in the green room and I'll be with you in just a second. God bless you. Come on, give them some love. Thank them for being on tonight, and we'll start on working on part 2, where we can do just some minimal training through this medium. So thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Ivelisse. Thank you, Danny, and thank you, Imani, for being on with us, taking out of your time to share your insights. We were blessed. God bless. All right, this is Pastor Abner. We are signing off. Thank you again for being with us. Thank you for those who made comments. Thank you for those who shared your questions, who made suggestions, and who were looking for some answers. And I hope that we were able to give you at least a starting place as we get ready for part 2 to provide some training for you guys who are wanting to do better. So reach out to your pastor, reach out to those leaders in your church that deal with children. Say, listen, we've got a great podcast. It's free. I'm not charging nothing. They can jump on and get some information. Amen. So God bless you guys. Have a blessed week.